I do have one more buy or sell regarding the Reds, or it's kind of regarding the National League. And I know you guys have talked about this a lot. And once again, we're looking at, baseball perspectives as Pacoda projections, which have the race not really being that close, but buying or selling that the National League Central will be a tight race this year. Because it hasn't been. It wasn't last year. The Brewers kind of ran away. They won by 10-plus games. I think we all thought going into last year that it was going to be 84, 85 wins. I think that was the projection as a Cubs fan. As the Reds fans were looking, I've even asked Trace before. I said, does it make you feel better knowing that 85 wins, which is where kind of we thought the Reds were going to be last year, 84, 85 wins, wouldn't have even got you sniffed? Like, you didn't get there, but even if you got there and you were exactly the team that you expected to be, does it make you feel any better that wouldn't have done anything? Because that's where the Cubs were. They won 84 games last year, and they didn't sniff the postseason. It gives you solace. But buying or selling that National League Central will be a tight race this year.
I'm going to buy it just because I don't think the winner is going to have 93, 92 wins, whatever Pacoda said for the Cubs and what the Brewers did last year. I think the winner of this division is going to have 85 to 88 wins. And I think, if we're talking about the Reds coming in at 84 and potentially finishing third, then you absolutely have a close race. So I'm going to buy it being a tight race, but it's not because I think these teams are going to be much better than they were last year. I just don't think the winner is going to have 90-plus wins.
I agree with Jacob. I mean, I think it's going to be the closest division probably in baseball. Maybe the AL Central, the four teams that are worth a damn there, they might be able to be a tighter race than we are. But I do think that, 86 is the number this year. I said it last year and I was wrong. I'm going to say it again this year. I'm going to say 86 is the number. If you can win 86, you can win the Central. I think every team's floor is pretty high. Like, I know we're out on the Cardinals and Pirates and Reds or whatever. I still think those are all 74-plus win teams. I do think that. I think the Brewers, I know what I think of them, but they never lose games. So at some point you just have to believe in them. And I do think if the Cubs, especially if they get Bregman, which we haven't talked about yet, but
we'll get to
if they get Bregman, I think they're the best team in the division, bar none, but do I think that team's 92, 93? No, I don't think they're a 90-win team yet. They blew so many games last season to where I don't know if I can trust their pitching staff. So what I'm going to say is
we got a closer.
It's true. I'm going to say this. I think 86 wins it, and I think every single team in the division has more than 74 wins. So that's about as tight as you can get.
Yeah. So I was just looking this up because I feel like we say this every year that the NL Central is going to be really close. Last year, first place to second place, you want to guess how far it was? 10 games.
10 games, yeah.
2 years ago, guess how far first place to second place was? 9 games. 3 years ago, guess how far first place to second place was? 7 games. The last time that it was less than 5 games in a full season was 2019. So that's the last time that the race was very, very tight. Now, granted, we know 2 years ago that the Reds and the Cubs were fighting for playoff spot, granted to be the last wild card. But going into the last month, I think the Cubs were 2 games back of the division. They just had a terrible last month, and the Brewers played very well. Same thing happened last year where the Brewers just seemingly wouldn't stop winning in August and September. So do I think it'll be tight? It's hard to say something other than yes. It really is. Because as we looked at last year, I did a show with Nick Kirby on Chatterbox Reds previewing the Cubs, and he says, when I look at the National League Central, I can see any team coming in first. I can see any team coming in last. When I look at the National League Central this year, I kind of share the same sentiment. While you always want to poo-poo on the Pittsburgh Pirates, if Paul Skeens, Jared Jones, and Mitch Keller start shoving, I could see this team winning 87 games, 88 games if O'Neal Cruz and Brian Reynolds, and they just get a little more offense. Key Brian Hayes turns into the prospect we once thought he was. If Joey Bart turns out to be the catcher that we think he is, I can see that team winning 87 games. I can see the Cardinals doing some devil magic. I can see the Brewers doing some devil magic because they seemingly never have bad teams. The Reds obviously have some young talent. Now, I do say that I can see any team coming in first. I can't see the Cubs coming anywhere near last. I know I'm a Cubs fan. I just can't see them being a 73-win team unless they just sell everything at the break for some weird reason. So while I want to be the contrarian, Well, I want to say this isn't what the National League Central is. Normally the team wins by 8+ games, 7+ games, because that's the way it's been for the last 6 years. It's hard for me not to say that it's going to be very tight. So I will buy that it'll be a tight race this year. And hopefully we get 2-3 teams going into September with, aspirations of winning the division. I've said this a long time. I mean, you guys know that watch and listen to this show. You guys that know me know I'm a Cubs fan. My Cubs fandom is so weird because I share it with no one. In fact, everyone hates it. Like my family hates it. My friends hate it. You guys hate it. You guys watch and hate it. I don't get to talk to with anybody about it, but they mean so much to me for some weird reason. And it's just such a weird thing. And I've always said that the one thing that I hope for, and it'll be someday, is a Reds-Cubs playoff series. Going to GABP and being the contrarian, and I'd be interested to see how many Cubs fans show up.
I bet there would be more Cubs fans.
I don't know if it would be more, because I
60.
think Reds fans would do a really good job. So that you can actually, I think the Padres did this a couple years ago, where you can geolocate where you can buy tickets.
Yeah.
So like you can make it to where if you live in Kentucky and Ohio, that's the only places you're allowed buying Reds playoff tickets, which would be pretty neat. I mean, there's ways you can get around it pretty obviously. It's you either drive over here or you tell someone that lives in that area, hey, Cubs fans, hey, can we buy tickets over there? But I think that would be an absolute blast. Unless the Cubs lose, then it'd be the worst thing that's ever happened to me.